You can add this to your arsenal, Bert.
What?
He's
We
shaking.
had to. We were in this recording project. I don't have a good shaker, and we wanted one on a track. I'm like, well, I got a cocktail mixer.
Nice.
We had some rice and quinoa, and I think
Does not sound like a good cocktail.
No, but that's going to be in the album production notes. That's going to be fantastic. Like,
yeah. So now it's going to have to go on every track. But
I mean, the production notes, you got to make sure you write down the blend of rice and quinoa to get that exact timbre.
This is just basmati rice. But yeah, it worked out.
Wegmans brand?
Geez, I couldn't tell you. I can't remember. It was the remainder of the bag I had of basmati rice. So
we made some basmati rice last night as well. We made homemade curry.
Is that how you say it? Basmati?
You know, my sister-in-law's friend is from the area where that word comes from, and she told us it's basmati.
I've never even asked anybody.
So
that's cool.
There are things that like I'll never eat. Knowing that information is awesome, but it will be difficult to change my habits because you guys, the ringing in your ears.
Mm-hmm.
That's tinnitus.
Yeah.
It's pronounced tinnitus, and I'm like, no, it's tinnitus, and I'm not ever going to be able to change that.
Yeah, if you look at the spelling, if you look at the spelling, it doesn't support tinnitus. But yeah, I'll always say that. I didn't get that.
Could you try again?
Who was that?
It was my watch. That's weird. It thought I was asking for my AI assistant. Don't know why though. I didn't say anything that sounded like SIRI, did I?
I don't know. Did you?
Ours goes off sometimes when you don't.
Yeah, and she can't hear you guys because that's only in my tinnitus-filled ears.
Yeah, it's funny. The other thing about that, too, is if you do say it in public, then you're going to look like that guy.
So pretentious, right?
Yeah.
You're
like,
tinnitus.
Like, excuse me, I want to know, does that come with a side of basmati rice? Well, I got one more of those words. Turmeric.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah. Although that one's more subtle.
But most people don't pronounce the R.
Right, but I'm saying that's still just a subtle little thing. Whereas if you go from basmati to basmati, or if you go from tinnitus to tinnitus, it's a much clearer change as opposed to turmeric to turmeric.
And aluminum to aluminium.
Aluminium, yes.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Well, let's do this.
This episode brought to you by linguistics.
Yeah, linguistics. The favorite topic of Fatboy Slim.
Let's get into it, shall we?
Okay. Let's get into it.
100.
I'm Bert.
I'm Drew.
I'm Ron.
I'm Ryan.
And this is the 100 Albums podcast where we discuss the ins, the outs, and the absurdities of a poster depicting 100 seemingly random albums, the only music podcast that doesn't actually play any of the music we talk about. Right about now, the Funk Soul Brothers. Check it out now. Here we are at album number 28 as we continue through the adventure that is 100 albums that appear on a poster that Drew got as a gift a couple of years ago. We first went through the poster, all 100 albums, by listening to and reviewing 2 albums a week for an entire year. And then we shared our thoughts and reactions with each other via video chat. Once we were all done, we thought it might be a fun little project to embark upon as a podcast. So here we are. Let's get into this week's album, You've Come a Long Way, Baby, by Fatboy Slim. Thoughts, guys? What's the vibe check? Well, let's do this. Let's start by saying we talked at length in a previous episode, The Prodigy's Fat of the Land. We talked at length about Big Beat. So, listeners, if you're just checking us out for the first time, go back and listen to that episode. Dig deep into the archive. I don't even remember what number album that was. 15? 16? No, 22, actually. 22. So it's only a couple albums ago. Go check that out. Then come back and listen to this one. Now, vibe check. What are your thoughts, guys? First reactions.
This one takes me back. I bought it when it came out. It takes me back to that time. And I mean it elicits good memories. It really does. You know, was it the video with Christopher Walken on that came off this one?
That's Weapon of Choice. That's from a different album.
Okay, cool. Well, then I'm
still really good
wrong.
Yeah.
But no, I mean I had this. This was a staple in the car when I was a kid for car trips.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely an album sound of a very particular time. You know what I mean? And that is, I do not mean that in a derogatory way. But it is to me kind of like you're saying, Ron, sort of frozen in that couple of years there at the end of before the flip of the century.
Well, when did it come out?
1998 is when this album came out, Ron.
All right, so we were in school. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. And it sounded really good in my car stereo at the time. As I'm sure it sounded good in Bert's too.
Oh, yeah.
It's, interesting. This is not too far off of the first Daft Punk album in terms of time, but are from very different places in terms of electronica and style.
Yes.
Yes. That was a big headspace I was in with this one because, my vibe is, not to sound like a snob, but it's an okay listen, nothing wrong with the listen, but I don't get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
And then I was conflicted because I get a lot out of Daft Punk. So been doing a lot of ruminating on that this week.
Yeah, and I will say that we talked about the Daft Punk. That was a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
What I like about this album is a lot of what I like about the Homework album by Daft Punk, which is that there's still a lot of experimenting here on this album. And not unlike that album, it had, I think, 2 hits, which are not very experimental.
Yeah.
But I do find it interesting that both of them, they're not in the same place. One's coming out of England and one's coming out of France. But both of them are doing some really heavy experimentation and putting it out, which is really challenging to do and actually sell something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it needs to be acknowledged as we look 25 some odd years later and say, oh, I mean, it's not that interesting,
Well, but it is kind of our job to build it up and tear it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Build it up, tear it down.
We got it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll keep telling the joke until I get a reaction out of you guys. This is rough morning, everyone. We're recording this in the morning.
You're fucking in heaven.
Oh, there we go.
For me, similarly, very nostalgia. It's kind of what Ron was talking about. I'm back in college and, maybe at a house party or something like that. I like this record. Not everything is a banger for me, but I, by and large, like the album. I really dig the big beat sound. We talked a little bit about that, when we talked about Prodigy, when we talked about it's funny. We listened to Prodigy and Daft Punk kind of coupled together and back to back. Still very, very different vibes. I would put Fatboy Slim in a better comparison with Prodigy than I would with Daft Punk. Although there was one song, I don't remember if I noted which one it was. It might have been either it's one of the last songs on the album. It's either Love Island or Acid 8000 that has a very Daft Punky feel to it. But the rest of this record, I feel like, is more aligned with Prodigy in terms of that big beat kind of thing. Daft Punk for me is too musical.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you strongly. Yeah. I think that this is much more in the camp in terms of this time.
Yeah.
Because this is pre-Daft Punk getting to what you're talking about.
Well, okay. Yes, that's fair. I see what you're saying.
And I think it's more aligned with this era of Daft Punk than it is with the Prodigy. I don't think the Prodigy is a little bit more, faster, more harder hitting.
Yeah. And that's why Daft Punk Prodigy, or what is it, Ryan? What album were you saying?
Homework.
That's why that's not one of my favorite Daft Punk albums. It's in this same little niche.
Yeah.
So I put this on in the car initially, and I got to tell you, I could not. It just wasn't doing anything for me for some reason. Maybe I don't know if it's because overexposure, because we've all heard this album or maybe I just wasn't in the mood for it. I'm not quite sure. What changed me to really liking this album considerably more than I thought I would is doing a full headphone listen.
Uh-huh.
And I will tell you, this guy is using that space that you can play with left or right, where things occur, where is that sound coming from, in a way that is really masterful. So not only is the sampling, which I'm sure Bert's going to dive into, intense, but the panning and the way things are set in the sort of soundstage, masterful.
What I find, so I talk about digging the beats and kind of the breaking and that kind of stuff, but the sampling, which yes, I've got copious notes on that, gents. But what I find really fascinating, and I've got an example of it a little bit later that I'm going to play. Look out! I'm going to play something. Yeah, I know. Look out! But is the obscurity of it all. The artistry that Norman Cook, aka Fatboy Slim, really brings to things is that crate digging aspect. And I've got some quotes about that kind of stuff later, but just the weird stuff that he plucks out of, a garage sale record bin or something. And he's like, oh, listening through a record and saying, oh, this little sound would fit right here, whatever. There are some songs on this album that have a dozen different samples in them in one song. Mm-hmm. And like that, to me, that's the creativity at work, right? Is he writing a symphonic opus? No, but there's still this aspect of artistry that's just different, and I think in many ways he helped to pioneer that type of thing. So, any other first impressions before I get into the background?
No, but staying right on that topic.
Sure.
And this is neither here nor there. I'm not denouncing this or what you said just now, Bert, but you brought to light a point that I wanted to make. That's now I can kind of put it into a singular sentence or two. But so what I need to do, I'll put it this way: what I need to do to appreciate this album is appreciate it for that. Like, I'm not appreciating it for the musicality pretty much whatsoever. If I get there, I'll say, okay, again, as a pioneer, he was first or one of the first of his kind to do such things. And back then it was really hard. You can talk about the studio work that, Pink Floyd and et cetera had to do back in their time. And so we can recognize that and say how it's special because of that, but I'm not necessarily saying positive things regarding the musicality because that's not what he was doing, which is an interesting way to appreciate music is all I'm saying. You're taking it to a different, you're looking at it as a purpose or maybe a creation over a song. I guess. Am I making sense?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for sure. I think that they're more entwined than that personally. That'd be like saying, if you're baking a cake, it's still the sum of its parts, so, and you'd still call it a cake. That is a metaphor that really failed. So let's move on.
No, I see. But no, I don't think we should move on because I think we need to at least express our point and get to an agreement on the aspect of that. Cause it's a very interesting point that I think this brings out, I think the cake is a good analogy, but then the other part of when you use the cake analogy, we go back to what is a song. So maybe it's just the use of the word song, right? Maybe we should stop using the word song because these aren't following. Sometimes he follows song form.
Well, Drew, how do you feel about like music concrete?
I was just going to say, so this now becomes a piece. This is now music concrete to me. Maybe we've arrived at it, right?
Okay.
Did we?
Well, there's also, you have to remember function over form here too. This is not music that was meant to cover at a karaoke bar in the sense of a song.
Exactly.
This is literally, if your butt's not moving, what's the lick on the album? There's a one of the tracks is like if your butt's not moving, your booty's dead or something like that.
Yeah.
So
which is why that wasn't a slam.
I think it is a dig. I think you're being rude.
Well, then you go on drinking your emergency, and well,
that was actually a hazy IPA.
Is that what you have as emergency? Because I just finished mine of the morning.
Yes, it is true.
Yeah, so that's it. That is it. It is to me a functional piece of oral artwork over a song, and that's the way I need to look at it to appreciate it.
All right.
Now
So, what is music concrete?
you
Oh.
studied that with us, Ron.
No, he didn't.
No.
I don't think that was covered in
Oh.
McBride's class.
Oh, all right.
So, in short, Ron, music concrete is the sort of birthplace of electronic music. It came from French studios, but also other studios around the world where they were using electronic sounds and piecing them together, often using tape. So they might like record a tape sound and loop it and see what it did. And so making quote unquote, I hate using this word, conventional or classical or academic music, but using it without the use, or sorry, making it without the use of instruments.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of that later gets developed into what we have today in terms of synthesizers, what we have today in terms of how sampling started, but from a very different place.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I think though that we just made a pedigree line that I didn't realize existed, and it's making me feel really good. But for reference, Ron, there's some Frank Zappa video of him doing such things. I can't think of what talk show it was, but some late night show, and he's got a bicycle and a steam kettle.
Yep.
And he was of course tapping into that too, because he was well educated and in the music world. So it's different. It's musical artwork. It's whatever, but it's got nothing to do necessarily with a song form as such. So
yeah. would that be the same as Tom Waits using unconventional?
You guys are doing the work for me lately. I don't even have to bring them up. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's I agree. Well, we can get into this off because I think there's some things you would really enjoy, Ron, from that era. But yeah, it had a lot of popular repercussions. We could have an entire mini episode about it.
Caused riots. Anyway,
I think that's a great idea, Ryan.
I'll save it for that podcast, Ryan.
Yeah, save it for that podcast. But I will say the cake metaphor was good. You guys really went the distance.
Oh,
I knew it was coming, Bert.
No,
I knew it.
No.
Hey, let's talk about background. Quentin Leo Cook was born on July 31st, 1963 in Bromley, England. He eventually went by Norman Cook and eventually became Fatboy Slim. He initially was musically active as the bassist for an indie rock band called the House Martins. After the band broke up in 1988, Cook formed the electronic band Beats International in Brighton. Brighton is kind of the epicenter for a lot of this big beat electronic music that started to come out. They produced a #1 single, Dub Be Good to Me. After that, he played in a band called Freak Power, a band called Pizza Man, and the Mighty Dubcats. All had moderate success, but in 1996, he adopted the name Fatboy Slim and broke out on his own, kind of as a solo artist. In an interview in 2001 with NPR, Norman Cook said, "Fatboy Slim, the name, it doesn't mean anything. I've told so many different lies over the years about it, I can't actually remember the truth. It's just an oxymoron, a word that can't exist. It kind of suits me. It's kind of goofy and ironic." I was trying to figure out, how do you come up with the name Fatboy Slim? But anyway. In 1996, that year, he released Better Living Through Chemistry, first solo album. The production style merged funk, rock, electronic music, and set the stage for his global success, which came with this album, You've Come a Long Way, Baby, released on October 19th, 1998 in the United Kingdom by Skint Records, and a day later on the 20th in the United States by Astralworks, record label famous for their kind of electronic music artists. It was a breakout album for Fatboy Slim. It considered a landmark in the electronic music scene, blending infectious beats with catchy samples and sharp, funky grooves. The album features several iconic tracks, including Praise You, The Rockefeller Skank, and Right Here, Right Now, each becoming anthems of the late 90s club culture. The album helped solidify the big beat genre as something in the mainstream. It cemented Cook's place as one of the leading figures in electronic music. It also showcased his innovative use of sampling, blending a wide range of genres, as I mentioned earlier. The success of this album, combined with his dynamic live DJ performances, earned Cook Fatboy Slim, numerous awards and solidified his status as a key player in the global music scene during that time. On the production side of things, Norman Cook did everything. He did all of the production, played keyboards, synthesizers, bass, did all the sampling, the scratching, and drum programming. Throughout the 1990s, Norman Cook built up a library of samples on floppy disks to create collages. He loaded these into an Akai S900 sampler connected via MIDI to an Atari ST computer. Atari computer, guys.
Our
Like
cell
so out
phones
of date.
have more computing
Right?
capacity than that.
Atari ST computer with C-Lab creative software to record and manipulate the samples that he was using. For most of the songs, he added the bass line and sampled other elements in that big beat style. So that's the background. I do have some sample notes here, but I wanted to kind of take a pause and see if you guys had any of the reading that you'd done or things that you wanted to add to it.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing specific to this album, which I found kind of unusual, this is another one where we're out in the late 90s. So indubitably the most common version of this was CD, right?
Yep.
But it did also, on its debut, have a vinyl release, which would have been probably kind of a collector's item rather than, I mean, I can't imagine it got a whole lot of play from a lot, but I mean, as a DJ, I'm sure it was important to him that it came out on records. But the way it breaks up the album is really strange. I'm not sure if you guys looked at this. It would have been a double album. And so your hits are hiding inside it. So the first side of the record, second track is Rockefeller Skank. Praise You is the last cut on the second record, first side. Like it's a really strange way to drop it up and break it up. And some of the stuff that I liked now it doesn't cut through any of the transitions, but like for me, the mental transitions get a little jostled by the idea of there being like flipping a record in some of these.
Yeah, that's interesting, Ryan. I had not thought of that as a.
No, I mean, shit, I had it on CD. I would have never even thought about that. You know, this is one of those just straight digital albums where you just put it on and fucking play it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, I think that was probably its intention. You know, people could just put up whatever track they wanted because it was on a CD. But I did, since he went through the effort of releasing it both ways, I kind of wanted to see how, but it seems to be just broken up by length of track.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was very surprised at his personal musical history. Was it the House Martinis, something like that? I actually went back and listened to it, and it wasn't terrible. I was very surprised at his level of musicianship, you know, played bass in bands, played drums, you know, played different shit. I was like, damn, this guy's not just an electrical,
and we found that in Daft Punk too, right? These guys, they were musicians first playing physical instruments and then kind of gravitated more toward this electronic. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't know that shit.
Yeah. And I also Daft Punked him as well. Is that just see, you know, like
that sounded really friggin' dirty.
I don't know.
You don't want to Daft Punk anybody.
No, you're right. I apologize to the entire world for whatever that sentence was, but I looked into like, you know, we talked about that concert with Daft Punk where they, you know, and so I looked into like what he did later, and he has, in my opinion, the most rock star concert that has ever happened.
Yeah.
Did you look into this? The Big Beach Boutique 2? So he hosted a concert. This was in like 2003. And he produced the concert on this beach. I guess he had played there once before in Brighton. It literally shut down the ability to have a concert like this in England ever again. It was 4 times bigger in terms of attendance than they expected, doubling the population of Brighton and Hove. 2 deaths, 170 injuries, 6 arrests. There was only 1 train going back to London, and it left like 5 minutes after the concert. So most people had to stay on the beach and sleep on the beach and pee on the beach. So the beach was a disaster. They had to actually bring out excavators to push everything back into the ocean because the whole thing smelled like pee. he literally like accidentally Woodstocked this town, and
British Woodstock.
The third comment on the YouTube So I looked it up on YouTube here, and I'll post it in the show notes. But the third comment by DiscoBox 2012 said, "I'm proud to say that I was there at the tender young age of 18. Me and my best friend traveled over 300 miles by train with a hearty breakfast of vodka and orange." That's all. I'm gonna have to watch this, Ryan. That's fantastic.
Well, this sounds a little bit like a quadrophenia.
It's an hour and a half long. This is an hour and a half long YouTube video.
They actually asked him to cut it short.
Yeah.
To try to get people out of there.
They did the same thing with the 25th anniversary of Woodstock. Like when it started on fire, he was playing. And
interesting.
They were like, yeah, you got to stop because people are just going batshit. Now you can't say he's responsible for it. I mean,
I don't know. It's starting to sound like it.
But yeah, apparently, like people were coming up on his platform. He was whisked away the whole 9 yards. He said it was wild. I forget the name of the Netflix documentary about Woodstock, but he has a thing in there that's really interesting.
It was Woodstock 99, right?
The disaster.
That's quite a documentary. That's insanity what happened there. I never knew until I watched it because I wasn't really interested. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, hey, a couple of notes that I had on some of the notable samples. I mean, obviously every song includes samples, many of them, 10 or more. So I'm not going to dive that deep into it, but I wanted to just kind of point some things out really quickly. So right here, right now, the first track has 11 different samples. The biggest are the drums, from Timber as One Mix by Strange Days and the drums in Steppin' Out by Earl 16. The right here, right now, right here, that the vocal line is Dialogue from Angela Bassett from the 1995 film Strange Days. So not only is he taking samples from music, but other art forms, in this case, a movie, which I thought was really interesting. Rockefeller Skank has 13 different samples in it. The surf guitar kind of vibe is Sliced Tomatoes by Just Brothers. Vinyl Dogs Vibe by the Vinyl Dogs is where the Right About Now, the Funk Soul Brother, check it, that vocal line comes from. And then there are breakbeats from Join the Gang by David Bowie, which is a very, very early David Bowie track, and from Groovin' with Mr. Blow by Wind. In my Apple Music, the song is called In Heaven, but originally the song title was called Fucking in Heaven. Somebody Ought to Turn Your Head Around by the Crystal Mansion, which is really, really good. I was not familiar with that song before doing the research. Gangster Trippin' has a horn lick from You Did It by Ann Robinson. Beatbox Wash is a song by the Dust Junkies that appears in Gangster Trippin'. The vocal line, What We're Doing When a Fat Boy Trippin', is it comes from that song. And then lastly, Praise You. If you have not listened to it, if you're not familiar with it, go listen to Take Your Praise by Camille Yarbrough. Just a fantastic song. And that's the vocal line, and I'm gonna praise you like I should, right? But the other thing that I found really, really interesting about Praise You. So this is JBL Sessions, Balance and Rehearsal.
Michael wants to rehearse it a couple more times, so why don't you guys just do that?
So this is rehearsal footage or audio.
That's Langhorne for you. Wants to get in tune. Four.
That's where the piano hook comes from.
And the lyric is, might keep your fantastic ball.
So how
Fantastic would be the key
on
word
earth?
on the fourth.
So how on earth did Norman Cook find some record of rehearsal? Like that to me that exemplifies the creativity. He's probably sitting around 5, 6, 7 hours a day with headphones on, just going through crates of records to find obscure samples like this to use in songs. So anyway, that is Balance and Rehearsal by Hoyt Axon and James B. Lansing, Sound Incorporated. It's archival rehearsal recordings. So those were kind of some of the things that I had about sampling and some of the stuff that appears on the record. Obviously, that's literally figuratively scratching the surface of what you could go into. But you guys have anything else you want to add to it?
Well, hold on though. The movie Scratch really got me into turntablists and all of this stuff. And what amazed me about Fatboy Slim, with turntablists in general, is their knowledge of minute pieces of songs is so impressive. I mean, these guys have a mental library of, stuff they can pull out that is better than a lot of historians in some aspects. I mean, there's a story about Africa Bambaataa pulling a record out and just handing it to the DJ on stage and going, here's your hook, and throwing it on. What these cats can do and pull stuff out and mix in is absolutely a talent and skill. And to me, it's just impressive. I don't like aspects of this album, but to be able to pull that stuff out. Same thing with Daft Punk. Same thing with the Invisible Scratch Pickles. Mike, the guy from the Beastie Boys.
Mixmaster Mike.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so fucking impressive that they can just pull an album out and lay a needle down with precision and make a song. That I love that aspect to it, that there's hidden gems and it all flows.
All right. Context. Where does this album fit into his discography? This was by far Norman Cook, Fatboy Slim's best-selling album. 3.75 million records were sold. Number 2, Halfway Between the Gutter and the Stars from 2000, only sold 450,000 albums.
Oh, too bad.
I say only, right? It's all relative. How many records have we sold? Tens. But in comparison to You've Come a Long Way, Baby, a huge difference. Rockefeller Skank spent 27 weeks on the Hot 100 chart. It peaked at number 76. Praise You spent 20 weeks on the Hot 100 chart and peaked at number 36. So not huge commercial success with the songs, like in terms of the hits, saying on getting to number 1 or whatever, but they had legs, right? And they kind of stayed around for a while. And I think that, I didn't look up what MTV airplay got and that kind of thing, but I'm sure it was out there because we're all familiar with it from our time being alive in the late 90s. So, this album, it peaked at number 4 on the Billboard 200 chart. I forgot to mention that too. So that's the context. That's what we've got. Other thoughts?
I mean, other than before we dive in, no, yeah. I think generally speaking, that wraps it up. That was a good, that felt good. I felt clean, like a burrito, like a clean burrito.
Okay. Clean burritos it is.
Burritos don't stay clean for long.
That's the problem, and let's do it. Let's rip it open.
Well, do you want to take a quick break and hear from this week's sponsor? Do we have a sponsor this week?
I don't know, Bert, do we?
Not me.
I do. Yeah.
I'm not plugging my side hustles this week.
Oh, you might have been. I don't know. Oh, we did. I hate to call them Old Faithful, but we have some sponsors here that have been with us from the beginning,
OG.
Clearly receiving massive benefits from advertising on our program. So stick with us, folks. We're glad to have you. Today's episode of the 100 Albums podcast has been brought to you by the Christian Brothers Theater in Branson, Missouri. Christian Brothers Theater is creating music theater for today's audiences. And our latest musical is sure to entertain. It's a story of friendship, betrayal, war, and musical numbers. Yes, you heard right. The Deer Hunter, the musical. Based on the critically acclaimed and slightly traumatic movie, is coming to the stage and starring the one, the only, Tony Danza. Because who better to dive into the dark depths of post-traumatic stress, Russian roulette, and the crumbling of friendships than Tony Danza? It's a story you didn't know you needed in your life. Vietnam, small-town America, and the world's most uncomfortable wedding reception. Get ready for Tony Danza like you've never seen him before. Gritty, tragic, and let's be honest, probably a bit confused. But don't worry. It's going to be a musical because there's nothing that says war trauma like a catchy tune. In fact, they actually gave us a sneak preview. A couple of the tunes. We've got one called Russian Roulette, Who Could Go Wrong? A high energy, ironically upbeat number, which seems a little off. There's the PTSD Tango. Apparently, there's I'm Home or Am I, where we get a haunting solo by Tony Danza, who doesn't really know if what is home anymore. Is this all a dream, a nightmare? We're not sure. He's going to sing about it. Anyway, lots of showstoppers. You'll laugh, you'll cringe, and you might even leave questioning your life choices. But at least you'll have fun. The Deer Hunter, the musical, where nothing is sacred except Tony Danza and his dance moves. Get your tickets now, or don't. Who are we to say?
Post-tango stress disorder? I don't know. All right. Well, thank you, Christian Brothers Theater. We appreciate it. Appreciate your generous sponsorship.
You know, what's really, not intentional here from the Christian Brothers, because they don't know this, but you have that like degree of Kevin Bacon. Remember that old thing?
Yeah, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest stars in the Deer Hunter, Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the biggest stars in Fatboy Slim, Tony Danza. So there's a kind of symbiotic
the connection. Yeah. Okay. Is Christopher Walken going to make any kind of a cameo appearance in the theatrical retelling?
I don't,
that would be interesting.
That sounds, he's a little bit more George and George theater, I feel like.
Oh, yeah, you're probably right. But he does have that musical theater background.
I know.
Classically trained.
Anyway.
I was going to break out a really bad Walken impression there, and I'm going to spare you guys and our listeners. So, okay. Well, thank you again to our sponsors. If you'd like to sponsor the 100 Albums Podcast, please let us know. Visit 100albumspodcast.com. Check out our website. There's a contact page there. You can shoot us an email, and we'll work something out.
What's that email address, Bert?
That would be 100albums at vertislab.com. 100albums at bertislo.com. Hey, it's time for Good, Bad, Ugly, guys. Let's dive into it, shall we? On the re-listen, what's striking you about this record? Is what's good, what's bad, and what is ugly?
Did it hold for you guys?
Hold? The album?
Yeah, like, did it stand up to the test of time for you guys?
I mean, yes, but not in the way that I thought. The hits did not feel fun to me anymore. I'm not sure if that's just because I've heard them too much, but I found myself like really digging like Acid 8000.
Yeah.
And I really,
a great song.
Soul Surfing.
Yeah.
And those were not the hits. And I think that to answer your question, Ron, when this came out, I was so inundated by the love of the grooves on the hits that I didn't listen to those. So those did not grab me, but it kind of also made space for me to hear some of the other stuff on there.
Yeah. I think I would agree with what you're saying, Ryan. I think also, I mean, I mentioned Praise You, which was one of the hits when the album came out. I prefer Take Your Praise by Camille Yarbrough as a song. But back then I didn't have the resources to figure out where that sample came from or whatever, at least not the way we do now, right? The internet being what it is now. And there are there are websites devoted to kind of creative sampling and where things come from and origin stories and whatever. So I think that kind of to what Ryan's saying about, so generally speaking, I think it stands the test of time for me. Like it's still a good album, but number one, I like getting into some of the other stuff that I wasn't as familiar with. And number two, I really like kind of the origins of some of these songs through the sampling techniques and that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
It didn't hold for me. And it took me a while to figure out why. Back in the day when it came out, I liked everything about it. all the songs, because like I said, my thing is road trips. I loved road trips. I get stressed out. I find calm in passing state lines. And so during that time, take a road trip, throw this album on, it was great. But as I listened to it this week, everything is wonderful with the exception of how he uses vocal samples. It just grated my nerves. Like, I love California, but how he used that, I can't do it. If I focus on the background stuff, I love this album, but it's either repetitive or I don't like the effects or how he uses vocals on this album. And I found it very, very distracting. On Gangster Trippin', there's a very reverb tinged vocal sample on there. And it distracts me from everything.
What was the second one so you mentioned California. What was the second song you were talking about?
Gangsta Trippin'.
Gangster Trippin', okay. Is the back to California, is that you didn't like the vocoder California is druggy.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. It for some reason on this album, and it's consistent, there are very few vocal samples that didn't just drive me batshit. It's either repetitive, which, I mean, that's kind of the nature of the music. I can get past that, but the effects he put on it, or, just how he used it, it grated my nerve. And I found that surprising considering how much I used to really like this album. And now I couldn't do it.
I can understand that. And I think you're kind of leading me into what I would call a hot take. Is it too late for me or too early for me to drop that, Bert? And I think
it's never too early.
Drew will definitely appreciate this. I think this as an album requires your attention, which we don't. A lot of pop music, we don't want that, right? Was it last week that we did Whitney Houston, right? And that music you can listen to and have on in the background, and it will do its job, and you can listen to it while paying attention, and it'll do its job. Much of this, I think a lot of this really requires your attention. I mean, some of it is geared towards maybe having like a drug-like focused attention. But I think from an academic standpoint, just putting it on and seriously listening to it, but it being kind of like a passive listen, I think is very difficult.
I agree and I disagree at the same time. I think if you're sitting down and really concentrating, really putting that attention in, you're probably correct. Or it is so far in the background that the repetitiveness doesn't bother me. Like, I can put this in the background doing dishes, dumb shit around the house. It's not going to bother me, and the beat's going to take over, and it's going to be enjoyable. It's going to be motivating. But I think if the space in between, like you're on your way to work, driving in your truck, that's just enough attention to piss me off, but I can't delve into it anymore.
Well, what I think, I like what you said, Ryan, and I see what you're saying, Ron, and you're both talking about the same thing as an outsider to that conversation. And what it is the difference in your listening experience. And I think based on what you said too earlier about your headphone experience being a better listen than your other experience, that forced your attention, and then you could appreciate it for the things he did, such as, let's just make it basic, panning, obviously sampling, adding effects and whatever else. Because to me, this didn't stand the test of time solely because it got moved on from, like it got passed on the highway, even though it was a trailblazer at the beginning. Other music caught up to it immediately, and at this point, I really wanted to be able to use this as an example on this, but I can't. My iPad is actually too old. But if, to our listeners, you are an iPad user, you have GarageBand on it, and if you have a newer version of GarageBand, it has a sampling station set up that you can. I've done it with students, and it's a fun project. You can time out samples, you can enter samples, you can affect samples, turn them on and off, and they will run. And you can create music just like this using your iPad. Not to say that it's better than Fatboy Slim or whatever, because it's not what I'm saying. He built the entire system on which we created this app, but you can. It's how far we've come from this album. And so I think maybe that's why this is dated, because it was interesting then, because it was so cool and unique, minus lyrics, which I'm missing in this album is lyrics, honestly. And I'm not a lyric junkie either, but to me, it doesn't develop. He doesn't have a lot of development. He has some changes to make different things change for you, but again, that's what you have to listen for. But I think it's a lot of blank space, and so I don't know. It's really cool to see what he created by doing what he did then, and what we have now is an example of that. So even though it's definitely dated to me.
Yeah, there is a dated quality to it. I 100% agree to that. I mean, from the second the first song starts, you're not in today's electronic world, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I still listen to, pop synth stuff from the 80s, and I don't apologize for it not being in today's world either. So
no, you don't. You gotta. That's why I'm not hating on this. It's just funny because I found myself thinking. I wanted to say like, well, you can. This sounds to me like a songwriting project that a kid could do, but it's so much more than that, because it was created by him. I mean, if somebody were to do this and claim it as their idea, it would be very diminuted. It's owned by Fatboy Slim, TM, I would say. But let's not forget, Bert, you said the Atari computer. Let's not forget Herbie Hancock on whatever the hell kind of computers he was using.
Future Shock.
I mean, digital pens drawing on these things, making sounds and sampling all this stuff before. Fatboy Slim did not create that. But, every step of the way, we've got a different innovator that has taken something and bringing it up to a new level. And we're at this level in 1998 today,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had, I really respect and appreciate the creativity that it takes to kind of be that crate digging DJ who's looking to create new sounds out of sounds that already exist. Right.
Yeah. It's such a romantic thing to do.
Exactly. And so again, from that NPR interview, his favorite thing to do is to dive into record store bins at thrift stores and, quote, buy boxes and boxes full of rubbish old albums and just troll them to find one little noise that I like. And I just think that's just so cool. Creative chopping, the big beat sound, those are all, I just think things that have stood up for me to the test of time. I don't love every aspect of the album. Under Bad, it does get a little repetitive sometimes. There are, he'll latch onto a phrase like Fatboy Slim is fucking in heaven. And I'm like, okay. I've had enough of that now. Thanks. After, a minute of a 4-minute song or whatever. But, and that's the one song that I would remove to make this album better if I could.
Well, such a phrase would be very popular and well received on a beach of a bunch of wild partying,
or
youth.
in a college bar, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, absolutely. At a club or something. So, but that just kind of grew tiresome for me. But that's also, I'm 48. Right. So I'm no longer in that kind of 18, 19, 20-year-old mindset or whatever. So, but by and large, good album as far as I'm there's not a whole lot of bad and ugly for me. So
I think we've hit on a few records like this that I've found myself just not interested in. And I think that's what it is. It's context for me. I wouldn't buy this now. I won't put it on again. I have no problem with it, but it's not something I have to listen to ever again.
It's not something you're going to go back to. Yeah.
Totally appreciate what he did. Totally. Don't get me wrong. I mean, more so than I even know things that he has done in the background of what we have today. So not a slam, but it's
I think I'm with you there.
Not my flavor, Yeah.
I'm not gonna buy this.
It's like Sprite.
I don't think I bought it then, but I'm not gonna buy it. This
Are
isn't.
you just gonna blow past the Sprite comment, Ryan?
I'm trying to digest the Sprite. The thing is, Drew, you're always so effervescent that I'm ready for stuff like that.
Fizzy.
Yeah, it's not a slam. I mean, you can't just love everything all the time in part of your life. And I probably totally would have, because I remember when the Chemical Brothers hit their one song I just loved.
Block Rock and Beats.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I missed Fatboy Slim. I remember you couldn't avoid Praise You, or Rockefeller Skank. But I never bought it. And I'm surprised, because I would have at that time. But then again, 98 is when I had a child, and my brain kind of changed in a lot of ways. So maybe that's why I never connected with him.
Shout out, Sage.
Well, yeah, I mean, if I remember, Drew, you were like so into P. Diddy then. You probably didn't have room for anything.
No, it was me and P. Diddy only.
Hey, speaking of things that don't age well,
I had him in my Discman all the time.
Kids, a Discman was a portable CD player.
Do any of you have a Discman that functions still?
No.
Curious? Yeah, we don't either.
No.
No,
No,
but I was really good at having the Discman balanced on my leg that went into a cassette adapter into my car stereo
car,
while flipping through 100 CD book while driving.
While
Shout
smoking
out.
a cigarette.
Oh, absolutely.
Shout out to my good friend who I'll refer to as W, who is listening to this podcast, who said the other day he still uses a tape input from an aux jack out because of what the stereo condition is in his car. Blew my mind, man. It's still out there.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the only physical media that I use anymore are records, like that tapes and CDs. Or I mean, I still have them, but I just don't.
I think it might be a Bluetooth adapter out, but it's still, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Wow.
My newfound task is getting a CD rack to go with my record collection, and then put my tapes out with it, so I have all the medias in one spot. But then I have to go buy a tape deck because mine took a shit a couple of years ago. So the dream is to just get the multimedia back again.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what other? If you could remove one song to make the album better, what would you guys take off of it?
Oh, that's
Nothing.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Love Island.
Hmm.
Oh, that's hard. I'm not sure I have a good answer for that. I'm going to take my answer back because I don't have a good answer.
Okay, that's fair. All right, results and ratings. I gave it a 6. Drew gave it a 4. Ryan gave it a 4.5. Average then was a 4.83, and it came in at number 70 out of 100 albums. Ron, where would you fall in a 1 to 10 scale?
This one puts me in a conundrum because today I'd give it a 5, maybe 5.5, but I own it, which my threshold's usually like 6 to 7. So do I have to put it above the certain?
No, because you probably purchased it back then.
Yeah,
And you're a different person.
Oh,
then.
yeah. Back when I was buying 5 albums at a time. Now, I would probably today, I'd do a 5 because it's all right.
Drew, Ryan, would you change?
I don't think so. I think I like my 4.5 rating on that. I really do, and I try to come at this pretty positively, I think. But it really isn't maybe an album for me, I think, at the end of the day. I appreciate what it did. I appreciate what Beethoven did too. I still don't put them on regular circulation in my car.
Yeah.
Drew,
how about you?
What was my score?
You gave it a 4.
4.4?
No, 4, even 4.
Oh, I was going to say, I was being a funny guy or something? 4.4? I could bring it up to a 5. I feel like that was more in my dislike category below a 5. I don't dislike this one bit, but it's just simply as that. It's great at what it did. I love what he did for music. Buy it. And it's just 30 years old. And I love some music that's 30 years old. I don't love others because we've moved on. And to me, maybe I mean, I don't actively say, well, we moved on for this, we're not going to listen to it, but he did exactly what he set out to do and created this art form or embraced this art form and took it. I will say, I just had to look back. That was my phone again. But I had to look back at my notes. So I listened on Spotify, and in a few cases I was like, okay, I've had enough of this. And I went to fast forward the song with the little slider, and I did it in such a way that it just kept going at that moment where I stopped fast forwarding, and the song continued exactly the same it was 3 minutes prior. And that was kind of adding to my point of it just being like, okay, here's my idea, here's my sample, or here's my loop, and it just goes on for 5 minutes. And so I don't have any ill will towards the album whatsoever, but yeah, I'd raise it to a 5 to get it up there.
Okay. Margaritaville time, guys. If Fatboy Slim had a theme restaurant, a la Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville, or if this album had a themed restaurant, you've come a long way, baby. What would it be called? What would the theme be? What would be served? What's the vibe?
I am not sure. So I did not come up with anything clever on this one. I really didn't. But I do think it would be like a sensory overload, whatever this restaurant is. Like I'm imagining Guy Fieri involved somehow.
Okay. That's interesting.
You could always go with Fatboy Slim Jims. You could go with Po' Boy Slims.
Oh boy, I like that. That's good. I had it's a health nut kind of restaurant where everything is like, super healthy, and it's called You've Come a Long Way, WHEY, baby. And bonus, everybody's eating really fast because of the music that's playing. It's like very kind of, there you go. You've come a long way, baby.
Anxiety inducing.
That's right.
Yeah. You could even take that into the old curds and whey category.
Mm-hmm.
You've come along curds and whey.
That's right. You're gonna eat real fast when the spider comes along. I'm sorry. We shouldn't be talking about spiders. We already did the Who.
Yes. Drew, you got a restaurant?
No, I was gonna do a play on the Slim Jim and add in those Tijuana Mama pickled sausages that I can't eat anymore on account of my destroyed gut. I was thinking one of them was called something fat, but it's not. It's Big Mama, so it didn't work. So it fell completely apart.
All right. Hot take time. Who's got a hot take about Fatboy Slim or about this album? I'm takeless.
I got nothing.
Yeah, I kind of said mine earlier.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, this is a reapparent genre on this poster. Very interesting. This EDM style era dance music. And it's, I don't know, it's been very enlightening to me to recognize.
Is that are we diving into poster secrets?
Who knows?
Well, poster secrets of the poster. This album, or this artist, works with Dizzy Rascal later, who is also on our poster.
Yeah.
And with David Byrne, who is
I love that, by the way.
Not on the poster.
Yeah.
There's no talking heads on the poster.
Yeah.
There's
a lot not on the poster, as we've talked about.
That's true.
That video you sent out, Ryan, was awesome, but very confusing because, well, it starts off with people stripping, and then the censored black boxes come in, and so there's naked people, so you're kind of like, oh, I'm gonna watch that, and then like the black boxes start like making words and stuff, which caught my attention. So then the whole damn video, I'm sitting there trying to figure out what all the censor boxes are meaning and the artwork involved. I thought that was cool as shit. And the David Byrne part I really dug that.
Yeah. That was good stuff.
You can thank Fatboy Slim.
Yeah. Yeah, he's in it. And he's got a very large black box. Okay. Well, hey, please, listeners, go now and listen to You've Come a Long Way, Baby by Fatboy Slim, and let us know what you think. Who cares what we think? What do you think?
Yeah. Let us know. Let us know. Let us know.
You can write to us at 100albums@bertislo.com. That's 100albums@bertislo.com. Or you can connect with us on Instagram or Facebook at 100albums podcast, or visit 100albumspodcast.com, our website. Keep us informed about your opinions.
Yep.
Join us then next week when we talk about 1988's banger, Bon Jovi's "Slippery When Wet."
Mm-hmm.
That is a pretty hard left turn from this week, but I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic conversation. Until then, gentlemen,
Yes.
as
have
always,
a wonderful day.
love chatting. Have a great week, everyone.
Yeah, I'll
Peace.
take.
Okay.
So seriously, slippery when wet?
Yeah, baby.
Oof. Okay.
Ron, Ron has some feelings.
I forgot about that one. It takes me back to 5th grade.
Did I get that year right? I don't think I got the year right. 1986. Damn it. 1986's "Slippery When Wet." I'm gonna slice that shit in. Was to dive into used record store bins. That almost has a rhythm to it. You feel it?
What are you hearing?
Your phone, I think.
My phone's not. My phone's inactive.
Oh, well.
That
your-
was cool.
That was. It happened while we did. That's why we were busting up. By the way, Drew, is you were getting sound effects that were commenting on your comments.
Weird.
I thought it was the dog farting.
Well, there was some dog fart sounds in there too, but that last one was really, it was very synthy. It was very
It
cool.
was.
Daft
I'm
Punk's
sorry.
gonna put that on their next album.
What's going on with that?